Travis Wing, that's all. So, scandal in Miss Utah pageant. I'm assuming that Miss refers to teens. I'm not sure. I'm not following as I would like to. But I'm assuming that Miss Lehigh, by having it revoked, was then denied going to the Sunday pageant to determine the Miss Utah winner. And age seems to be a weird thing. If the qualifications for age are that you're a teen, you'd think that the age would be 13 to 19. How complicated is that? How can a driver's license or birth certificate screw that up? How could the pageant screw that up? I even saw the form that they showed, and I show in the video that 18 was the cutoff. So if you're 19, you don't qualify as Miss Teen. You're a ringer. An unfair competition to the younger girls. Oh dear God. Yeah. So yeah, it was rigged for China. If you're aware of the news over the years, everybody in America who does business with China has to conform and comply with China. Everybody needs to show their loyalty to China, or China shuts off business in China. And it's several billion population. That's a huge market. So if you get banned from China, that's a hit to your finances. So yes, that's why Nelson, Shanghai. So, lost another subscriber last night. Weeding out the goats from the sheep. Apparently, people cannot handle the truth. And the majority of you have not been following me for years. You've not heard the videos where I go over what the church did to me. And so you don't understand why I'm so critical of the church, why I expose their crimes and their corruption, not just their lies. The church is a fact. The great and abominable church, talked about in the Book of Mormon. They do have Lucifer as the head of their church. And so what is done to me is because of the church. And the severity of what they have done to me cannot be restored simply by handing over the church to me. Yeah. If they were to hand over the church to me, that still would not provide me with restitution sufficient for the damage that the church has caused me. This is how serious it is. That you guys get upset with me. Well, not you guys are the loyalists. The ones who are leaving. Who put a thumbs down, who put hate comment, death threats. They're the ones I'm talking about. Gotta get my pronouns right. Mormons don't get it. And so, yeah. 19. So they made it to America. They again made it to a promised land. Exodus, promised land. And tents. That's also a pattern repetition in what's going on. This also, because we find at the beginning the learning of the Jews, so it's not literal history, means it's revelation for the latter days. This is what will happen. It hasn't happened yet. But the Book of Mormon tells us it will happen. And in the learning of the Jews, according to the prophecies of dates for the latter days, we're in the final year of the latter days. April 2024 is the last day. And so if the Book of Mormon is going to be true, pressure. That's the theme song in the description below. Pressure. Not Miss America. Already did that in the other video. And I didn't do China Girl by David Bowie. I did that in the email of the guy who sent me the information about Miss Utah. And thus was able to find the scandal of Miss Lehigh. And so, like I've been doing videos all this time, everything has happened according to the Book of Mormon, according to Joseph Smith, according to the Bible. It's all happened. And so, even though Zion has not happened, we're in the final year, why would it not happen? I mean, yeah, the church is trying to get their Zion built and replace this to keep the real Zion from being built. But the Book of Mormon also prophesies that the church is going to fall. And there's a couple of things that could happen to fulfill that exactly as the Book of Mormon told us. One, the church will fall because of the Bible. Because of the churches tampering with the Bible and with the Book of Mormon and Joseph Smith. That Mormons have an even greater stumbling block than Christians, and that resulted in the Davis County Mormon housewives to ban the Bible for porn, of all things. No religious exemption, just banned it. And that's going to have repercussions that Mormons are all cowering and hoping that this goes away, and it won't. On my mission, this was before the internet. People hear things about the church and it sticks in their mind. So that when the church is brought up, years later, they go, oh, you're that cult group who practice polygamy. That type of thing. Oh, you're the murderers. You're the ones who banned the Bible. These kinds of things cannot be undone. And those women are so selfish and greedy and self-centered and so stuck on themselves that they didn't even think of the consequences of their actions. They believed the lie from psychologists that porn is addictive and harmful to kids, and then defined porn as the Bible. And so therefore the Bible is addictive and harmful to kids. And so they banned it. That was their logical thinking with emotions. And now all of Mormonism will suffer for their actions. a few Mormons destroy the church. And I've heard Mormons complain about this. When the news of a pedophile bishop, the Mormons are complaining, whenever it's a Mormon, they always cover that it's a Mormon in the news. And it gives us a bad name. Kind of serious, but point taken. The world generalizes the actions of a few for the whole. Like I said, this damage is irreparable now. And we see that in the Book of Mormon with the sons of Mosiah. They go around trashing the church. And then they get struck down and visited by angels. And they try to go back to the people to say, we lied to you. The church is true. Jesus Christ is real. But the people don't believe him anymore. They think it's a trap, a trick. And so they can't restore the damage. And so then they do the Lamanite mission, hoping to undo and make restitution for what they did, which they even realize they may never be able to fully restore the damage. Because the people of the Nephites, there were still those who, that was because of them. That damage was not undone. So like the church, to me, there is damage they caused that the church cannot undo. So, another thing that should be understood is that it's also in the language of the Egyptians. The language of the Egyptians for boats, sailing in waters, and then landing on dry ground for the promised land. This comes from the Egyptian Ogdod story, also the Heliopolis creation glyph, the Heliopolis creation story, in which you have the earth covered in water, and then the waters recede and the dry land rises up. And the Ogdod story is the one with the boat that's on top of the mound that rises up from the waters. This is the comparable because it's a direct match to the flood story of Noah in our scriptures. And Matthew tells us, as in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the latter days. There you have the match to the Ogdod story of the Egyptians corresponding with prophecy for the latter days. The Egyptian documents are the source for all prophecies of the latter days. And so the concept is intense with its meaning. Picture is worth 1,000 words? Yeah, literally. Because one picture can fill volumes of books to try to translate it. You can't just do a simple word translation for a picture hieroglyph in Egyptian. It is insufficient and incomplete. And so if you go through the sign list of Sir Alan Gardner, that's what he's trying to do there, is give us one word meanings for the individual words that are given there, which are a combination of multiple hieroglyphs, which I've demonstrated, having deciphered it, that the Egyptian hieroglyphs are an ideographic picture language, that you're supposed to get a full meaning from a single picture. That when you combine pictures together, it exponentially expands on the meaning for the words. And Egyptologists don't go that far. They've simplified it just as the Rosetta Stone did of the Ptolemaic Greek period, right before the Roman period, in that transition phase. And so, to summarize, greatly summarize, baptism comes from this, the ritual of baptism, and the sacrament, likewise, but more so with the death of Osiris. But he too was baptized in his rituals of death, in which the church gets it right only because of Joseph Smith, in that is baptism is a symbolism of death, burial, and resurrection, but also being born again. Seed, egg, baby. The baby in the womb of a woman is immersed in water. When the water breaks, it's time for the baby to rise up on dry ground. And so Moses, with the Exodus, parting the waters, passing through on dry ground, baptism, death, burial, resurrection, babies being born again. That whole symbolism involved there. And remember, this is greatly summarized. And so you also have Jesus, who parts the waters of the River Jordan, passes through on dry ground with the Ark of the Covenant. Direct comparison with Moses, because the law says that the Jewish Christ of the latter days is a man like Moses, who parts the waters for Mormons to pass through on dry ground, which was done in 2020. That was an incredible feat I performed for you. And what thanks do I get for it? Another subscriber leaving. Unbelievable. But also, you'll know that Elijah and Elishua also part the Jordan River, pass through on dry ground. Elijah is God Yah. Elishua is the God of salvation. Jesus, Yah of salvation. See what the authors are doing? The man like Moses is all of these characters. None of these are literal history. And so these supernatural events are not real. They're revelation for the latter days, and it was fulfilled, and not a single Mormon believes it. Unbelievable. And so, yeah, the gathering is all about the Exodus and the gathering to Zion, which has to do with the sacrament. You gather to church. Technically, it was supposed to be the temple originally under the Egyptians, but regardless, the symbolism is still there, sort of. It's supposed to be the temple, no church. And we all sit for the sacrament meeting, and there are hymns and prayers and blessings, just as at the temples of the Egyptians. And then you have the priests who break the bread, just like in the Egyptians, for the broken body of Osiris. which was shed for us. That path in the afterlife for salvation with resurrection and exaltation in the highest degree of the celestial Son kingdom. Passing through the veil after being judged, passing our judgment and being written in the book of life. All of this comes from the Egyptians. And I had the Restoring Joseph Smith's Church channel, which I have linked in my homepage for you. And I could be putting these Book of Mormon series videos on that. I've given up on that channel, but I still leave it there. It's way behind on stuff, but the church has attacked me with my internet service over the years, and has made it difficult for me to maintain that site. They just damage. I can't even begin to explain the damage they've caused me, that they cannot restore. And so we then take internally the bread and the blood red wine for the blood of Osiris that was sacrificed. And in so internalizing it, it's like pregnancy, even though that's not where seed goes. But it's the symbolism of it. Because Horus, when he returns as the son of Osiris to restore the kingdom of Osiris, he wins by feeding his uncle Satan, King Set, a tossed salad with special sauce, and he gets pregnant and gives birth to the branch, which then game, set, match. Horus wins. He's the branch. He proved that his genealogy through Set makes him the successor. And it's a little complicated because there's a lot of stuff to explain. Like I said, very brief summary. And I've already spent how many minutes on this very brief summary? And so the branch comes from Osiris's first death with Babel, the cedars of Lebanon, and the Dej pillar, the symbol of Osiris, which is Ezekiel 17, the parable about the man like Moses, who is the branch that is taken by an eagle to America and is born in America, in the San Francisco Bay area. And then his nativity is Oakland, California. And then he moves to Michigan, willow trees, many waters, and then eventually makes it to Utah to start the ministry. And as we're seeing here with Nephi, just as Moses, he hikes to the top of mountains. And so, yes, I've done that in Southern California. Got the 5 Peaks Award for the San Bernardino, San Gorgonio mountain ranges. I'm still a legend down there. I'm the boy who got lost in the mountains. And every year, the rangers keep telling the visitors about me to warn them to not go alone. It was not my fault. So, you can confirm it. And so, yeah, when you see these boat stories, that's what you need to be thinking of in all of this. And so what does he say afterwards, after making it to America and talking about making a record of the history of the people that were destroyed? Mormons destroyed. This is what I'm working on, guys. Collecting. Those are the large plates, plus digital files. And I'm realizing that it won't be until Zion, if it happens, because the Book of Mormon says it may not happen. Mormons may be utterly destroyed. Nobody makes it to Zion. I get stuck in a cave. Dear God, can you imagine the tragedy? Mormons so stubborn that they just eradicate and erase Mormons from history. Exactly what the church tried to do to me. And so, yeah, Nephi tells of his sufferings and crucifixion. Bruce, I have a question, Bruce. And Jesus, that's who we meant to be talking about here. But yeah, the sufferings and the crucifixion are all prophecies of the latter days. The stories of Jesus. Again, I have to keep repeating this. I shouldn't have to. They're not real. They're not literal history. They are made so by Roman Emperor Constantine, who created Christianity. And that's apparently too complicated even for Christians to understand. And why I'm losing lots of my viewers. It's all fun and games until I start criticizing Jesus. But I have to. Because Christians are evil. And that's why Brigham Young turned Joseph and the Book of Mormon Christian. To turn Mormons evil. To take them away from the true Christ, who was Joseph Smith, and then the future Mormon, of which Joseph Smith was preparing for. Just like John the Baptist with baptism. And so Mormons shall be despised and scattered until the latter days, when they shall return to Zion, which is symbolic of returning to the Lord, because he's in Zion. Hopefully. Has not happened. The scattering has. The church, in the beginning, Joseph Smith was calling Mormons to gather together. Gather to where the church headquarters was. And then in the United States, building up stakes in Zion in the United States. But it wasn't intended to always be that way, because in 19 July 1840, he's calling for Mormons to gather to Nauvoo to start working on building Zion. And so this whole Exodus concept has been ruined by Brigham Young, as he only took the elite in 1847. His loyalist followers came with him, along with along with the kidnapped sex slaves of polygamy. The church really gets upset with me when I talk about that. They call it religious freedom. It's a crime, a very serious crime. But they want a religious exemption. And so it was not until the United States took away his kingdom the very next year that he then hatched a plot to gather the poor saints and the saints from Europe to his church, his kingdom in Utah, to gather to Zion for the sole purpose of building up an army to go up against the United States and take back their land. And thus he then scattered Mormons out in Deseret on the border there. And then the Mountain Meadows Massacre occurred as a result of that, to keep people out of Mormon land. Even though it was not Mormon land, they were in denial that the United States had claimed the land, it being seceded from Mexico. And so, yeah, there were wars, Utah wars, as a result, because it was all about owning the land. And so thus Nelson is doing a different tactic. He's buying up land, along with China, to rig the Miss Utah pageant. But at the same time, he's also working with the secret combination in America to overthrow the government. So that all of these things he's doing will produce, they hope, their Zion. They get it back. And child bride polygamy and other abominations. And they also get to get rid of Joseph Smith in the Book of Mormon, as those Davis County, Utah housewives, Mormon housewives, have now put a target on all Mormons' backs. And if that's the destruction of Utah, the church will be forced to do away with Joseph Smith in the Book of Mormon. And then when the destruction is over next year, they come back from fleeing from the parable that I gave, that Joseph Smith gave, and say, we own the land. And then they do their doctrine of Lucifer in open plain sight, as Albert Pike said it would be. It's already the doctrine of Lucifer. Any Mormon knows what the doctrine of Lucifer is. And so, what do you think those Davis County Mormon housewives did? They followed Lucifer's plan of happiness to take away others' agency, and went to such extremes as to ban the Bible. So not only has Christianity screwed up the Bible, so that you have to break through the Christian wall of misinterpretation and mistranslation. You then have Brigham Young's Christian wall that's around that. And now, an outright banning of the Bible, so that nobody like me can break through to get to the real meaning of the Jewish authors. This is the danger of hedge laws of the Pharisees. You build up so many protections to keep people from violating the law that you end up punishing everyone and keeping everyone away from the law itself. And that's destruction. So, let's do a last check here, since we've got plenty of time. Heaven forbid I have a shorter version of the video for you. So, yeah, explaining the different types of plates, which I explained I've fulfilled. Yea, even the very God of Israel do Mormons trample under their feet. Yep. See, everybody knows and is told in the church, when you get to it, that Jesus Christ, when he is locked up and is about to be executed, we are told every single Jewish law was violated. And I've been telling you, Jesus is not real. That did not happen. It's a prophecy for the latter-day Christ. Even Joseph Smith was murdered. But that was not a violation of the law. So Joseph doesn't actually fulfill that. It's not actually him that it's being talked about. It's me. It's what the church did to me. And yes, it's fulfilled. Every single Utah and United States law was violated in what the church did to me. Caiaphas, the head of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which was Monson in 2008. And then Nelson renewed it. I've got the documents. I've got the money receipts. Money receipts. I have the Judas betrayal receipts. It's if you are learning this for the first time, this would shock you. You'd be like, oh dear God, I never realized the scriptures were true this way. Yeah, they are. And the church can never restore the damage they did to me, even if they did do what Nelson says they're gonna do and hand over the kingdom and the money to me. That still is not enough. Nelson, he said that. Parable of the Talents. And the book, Way to Perfection. Joseph Fielding Smith, Sr. Lucifer, which symbol is the inverted pentagram, which is on the keystone of the doors of the Salt Lake Temple, which means Nelson. The bridegroom of Venus. The bride, which is the inverted pentagram. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer? Son of the morning, Venus. She's the bride. The inverted pentagram. Lucifer. Inverted pentagram. The bridegroom. Mars is the husband of Venus. Russell, Marion, Mars. He's supposed to give me the kingdom. He said so. It's prophesied to do so. And he won't do it. And yet that's still not enough to compensate me for the damages he caused. Because the whole eye for an eye, which is not correct, you have to give more to show that you've repented and are restoring the damage that was caused by you. And so just to hand over the church and the money, that's even insufficient. They have to give more on top of that for that damage, but the other damage they can never repay. And so the debt that is owed me is too great for the church to pay back. And so they use that in scriptures for your souls. That the Christ has suffered at the hands of the church to save all of you. And you can never repay me for this. But the best thing you can do is hearken. And in so doing, you will be blessed by getting to Zion. And it still hasn't happened yet, because we're in the final year. And he cometh according to the words of the angel, 600 years from the time my father left Jerusalem. Yeah, no, that's 2020 is the Exodus. That's what it's referring to there. It's a math thing with solar eclipses. And it's quite clever of Joseph Smith Sr. Because he was keeping the Exodus a secret from the enemy. Because that's not the plot of the enemy, is to cause Mormons to leave in an Exodus. They weren't going to give you an Exodus, and they succeeded. And so for Joseph Smith Sr. to encode it, he's hoping that I would have figured it out, and I did. But that's just, wow. And unfortunately, Mormons missed it. We're led out of Egypt, comparing it to Moses. Yeah, I found all of these documents in the Egyptians. He yieldeth himself, according to the words of an angel, as a man into the hands of wicked men, to be lifted up according to the words of Zenoch, and to be crucified according to the words of Neum, and to be buried in a sepulchre according to the words of Zenos, which he spake concerning 3 days of darkness, which should be a sign given of his death. And I found them all. They lead you to believe those are in the brass plates, literal history and all. They're not in the brass, and there's no such thing. It's the Egyptian documents. I found them. Been doing publications and videos going over all of this. And so the lifted up is a sign in the heavens, a sign given of his death. Crucified on a cross. Romans didn't use crosses. That's a cross over America, the first and last day of darkness, of 3 days of darkness. The second one is this year. 14 October 2023. YouTube recommended that video of mine that I did with the t-shirt that I have for this year over Utah. Not a coincidence. And so buried in a sepulchre. Baptism that I already went over with you with Osiris. 3 days of darkness. That's the symbol of it all. The death of a king and his kingdom being usurped and then being restored. by the true heir to the throne. For thus spake the prophet, the Lord God surely shall visit all the house of Israel at that day, some with his voice, because of their righteousness. Good job, guys. To their great joy and salvation, and others by thunderings and lightnings of his power, by tempest, by fire, by smoke, by vapor of darkness, the opening up of the earth, the mountains which shall be carried up. Yeah, destruction for those who don't hearken. All these things must surely come, saith the prophet Zenos. And the rocks of the earth must rend, because of the groanings of the earth. The isles of the sea, which shall be wrought by the Spirit of God, to exclaim, the God of nature suffers. Climate crisis. So yeah, you should be concerned that we're not having normal water from rain. We're about to enter into summer, and we did not get the rains that we needed. We got an excessive amount of snow, which caused flooding. But then we don't have rains. It's because the problem still exists. And so, if nothing were to happen, if we were to continue on this path, yeah, we're going to go through another drought in the next few years. And the church won't have their supply of water to give back. And so this is the problem, as Utah is purposely exacerbating the problem, trying to get Utahns to use fake grass. Fake grass does not give off the photosynthesis back into the cycle of the earth. That's how we get rain, is with vegetation. And instead of having vegetation, which they think, oh, well, we spend water on the vegetation, so we don't want to waste water, so let's put fake vegetation and preserve the water. No, that's going to result in no water, and this place will turn into a desert again. Do they not know how to terraform? No, they're purposely destroying Utah. They don't want Utah to blossom as a rose. Because if they were to plant vegetation throughout this whole valley, we would have rains, and thus snow, which would produce more rains, or more water for us. We wouldn't be a desert anymore. We would blossom as a rose. But the church doesn't want to do that, at least until after Zion is created. And the whole purpose is so that you suffer, that you are weeded out, so that only the goats remain for the church, and the goats are loyal to the church. The sheep aren't loyal to the church. The sheep are supposed to be the ones loyal to me. That's the whole thing. As the church considers the sheep weak and disobedient and non-compliant and doing their own thing rather than being slaves to the church. And so they got to weed those people out. And if necessary, enslave people to follow them. That's the whole thing with tithing, is they compromise you with a crime, but you're also giving loyalty to the church. You are in bondage, and you don't even know it because the United States isn't clamping down on them again. Okay. And Mormons shall turn their hearts aside, rejecting signs and wonders. That's also Samuel the Lamanite. He prophesies of signs in the heavens. And then when they happen, Mormons are saved from being murdered by Mormons. But Mormons start rejecting the signs. They're bored. Okay, well, no Jesus, so I don't believe anymore. And the videos that I do about signs in the heavens don't get views because Mormons are fulfilling the prophecies. They're rejecting the signs. They're not believing that the signs are about the latter days anymore. They don't acknowledge me with my credentials. So, because they turn their hearts aside, saith the prophet, and have despised the Holy One of Israel, they shall wander in the flesh, and shall perish, and become a hiss and a byword, because of the Davis County Mormon women, housewives, and be hated among all nations. Dear God, this is likely to be it. They have banned the Bible. And so, yes, Mormons become a hiss and a byword and hated among all nations. The church and all their propaganda campaigning throughout the world ruined. And Mormons become a hiss and a byword and hated among all nations. And when the day, saith the prophet, that they no more turn aside their hearts against the Holy One of Israel, because they have to be destroyed to do away with Jesus. And at that point, as Albert Pike says, they need to find someone else to have a compass with, to turn their hearts to. And I've been here the whole time, so if they find me, they will no more turn aside their hearts against me. Then will he remember the covenants which he made to the fathers. I cannot build Zion alone. I need other people. We have to have a perpetual seed, egg, babies. We can't have Zion of the elderly who are watching me. You can't have babies. So Zion would just be a temporary social club of the retirees. We have to get the youth. We have to get the women who are younger, who can have babies. And they don't listen to me. I can show you the analytics. I keep a file of them daily to monitor who's hearkening, because my videos are a weeding out process, a pre-weeding out process. And I'm concerned about a guy named Joe who used to make comments all the time that he believes, he acknowledges who I am, and was posting comments to get other people to listen as well. And so I put out the call for help with the work that I have to do. But I can't just give people access to the key stuff that can then compromise all my work and destroy me. I don't know him. Just because he's supportive and praising me I have to determine, is it flattery, pacification, and deception to destroy me? And so I give a simple little assignment to see if he can do it. And if he can return and report, then we'll work our way up. But he emailed me. I gave him the first assignment. Never heard from him again. Never heard from him on my channel. No comments. He's gone. I don't know if it means he's dead. I don't know what happened. I don't know if I called his bluff and he went, oh crap. He's just gone. I don't know what happened to him. I hope he's okay. I hope he's not a fraud. But like I keep telling you, we cannot let corruption into Zion. We cannot allow Zion to be destroyed and usurped. And so we have to make sure that Zion people go to Zion. And for Mormons who are not Zion people, destruction is what humbles them to then start from scratch. Just like the poor Zoramites, Alma and Amulek. Come across them, they've been kicked out from the building that they made because they're no longer employed. They're now poor. And so that disqualified them, just like the Bible. It's porn. So the Bible is banned. And so he teaches them about faith. That the word is likened unto a seed. And you don't know with a seed what the fruit is. You only have a seed. You have to get the fruit to tell people about the fruit. And Mormons can't get that. Their spiritual witness is the seed, yet they claim it's the fruit. And nobody understands them. And so until Mormons can understand that simple basic doctrine and begin to practice it so that they produce the fruits of repentance to show that they are truly a Zion people. And that's the thing, is that unfortunately you can't be trying in Zion. You have to be. And so thus the economic system. You work for Zion without money. And you work for other people in Zion. And in return, they work for you. So as long as you're working for Zion, you get everything you need, everything you want. And there is no rich or poor. And you get to own, so that it's not communism. I always get that from people. You know, Nazis love to create extremes. And when you talk about no money and labor, they immediately say, communism! There are other forms of economy. But they don't want to acknowledge that. Because by dismissing communism, you then have to embrace their fascism. That's their whole plot. For government, for economy, for social society. That's what they've been doing. Is that Roe v. Wade? They overturned it. So in overturning it, yeah, we got to get rid of all this other stuff. Got to get rid of abortion clinics. Got to deny abortions, and thus the pills for abortions and other abortion drugs and such. And then they go after contraception. Well, since, you have to have babies, no abortions, then we don't need contraception anymore. So they'll ban that. And so women are vulnerable. And they then have to be married once they're old enough to breed. And so there's no reason for rape, because Mormon girls are now getting immediately married off. They're not given an education. They're not given careers. They have to breed. And so there's no need for contraception. There's no need for abortion and abortion clinics. There's no need for abortion pills. And thus, because Roe v. Wade's have been overturned, we're returning women back to their place in the kitchen, barefoot and pregnant. And society is not scared enough, not protesting and rising up in anger enough to stop it. It's already been set in motion. And women are not rising up in rebellion to stop it, to get it back to where it was. So I will gather in, saith the Lord, according to the words of the prophet Zenos, from the four quarters of the earth. That's the keys of Moses, president of the church. Perhaps I might persuade them to remember the Lord, their Redeemer. That's why the Book of Mormon was written, guys. Right here. That's why it's to the Jews. That's why it's to the Christians. That's why it's to Mormons. So that you don't get fooled by false Christ Jesus. And so, Jerusalem has been destroyed according to the workings of the Spirit. He did show prophets of old all things concerning them and concerning us. They are written upon the plates of brass, referring to the Bible and the scriptures that were rejected from the Bible, even the Egyptian documents, which are the source of all the prophecies. All are engraven upon plates of brass in the language of the Egyptians. And they're written in the Book of Mormon and books of Moses. I did read many things unto them which were written in the books of Moses, but that I might more fully persuade them to believe in the Lord their Redeemer. I did read unto them that which was written by the prophet Isaiah. So the books of Mormon, books of Moses, and the prophet Isaiah talk about the man like Moses, not Jesus. Even though Isaiah is the reverse of Jesus. Jesus is Yah of salvation. Isaiah is salvation of Yah. For I did liken all scriptures unto us, that it might be for our profit and learning. Hear the words of the prophet, who are a remnant of the house of Israel, a branch who have been broken off. Hear ye the words of the prophet, which were written to the house of Israel, and liken them unto yourselves. And so now Joseph Smith Sr., to replace the 116 pages, is having to do filler work, putting in Isaiah. And so the next video we'll do is a summary of the Isaiah parts.